So, go ahead.
Good.
Was part of when you rescheduled this game, was it, could you have started it at a night game, or was it just you agreed upon like an afternoon?
We agreed upon an afternoon game, largely to accommodate the White Sox travel schedule because they were coming in on the heels of a day game yesterday, play again tomorrow, so that was the preferred time.
Chris, how impressed have you been with this turnaround in a week? I mean, it felt like last week the guys were looking a little bit tired, and understandably so, given the schedule and makeups and all that. Just how well they played over the last 8-9 games.
Yeah, we've played a lot of baseball, and I think during the course of the season there were kind of those ups and downs, and Tito talks about it all the time. And starting in his spring training speech, like the season's going to be defined by how do we handle and overcome adversity. And we went through a stretch there where faced some good teams, maybe weren't playing our best, and that was one of those moments where we could have gone either direction. And it's typical for this team and this coaching staff and Tito is we responded to that challenge well and have played some pretty good baseball over the last week.
With any younger player, it's always difficult to have a specific timeline for development and say, like, okay, this is how this is going to go. You've had so many individual situations like that this year, while also trying to compete. Just what has that experience been like of kind of balancing those two things with so many cases like that?
Yeah, I think it's probably the best to get the player's perspective on what that's been like for them, because each individual handles that a little bit differently. But I think we were pretty open at the beginning of the season that we believed in the young group of players that we have, and we didn't want to create obstacles for them to contribute to our team winning games. And we were hopeful that two things could happen. They can contribute to help us win in building a competitive team that could compete for the Central, and then they could individually continue to improve and get better. And there are lots of examples up and down our roster where that's actually happened. And I give Tito and the coaching staff and support staff a tremendous amount of credit to providing the resources, environment, and support to make that happen.
Chris, did you expect Oscar's power production to kind of bump up a little bit as he got more comfortable here and more at-bats, et cetera?
So Oscar has done an incredible job of transitioning to the major leagues, maybe in some ways better than we could have expected. One of the things that had been his calling card throughout his time in the minor leagues is the way he impacted the ball. And when I think early on he was kind of managing his at-bats as well as he could, and we were hopeful that he could then combine both of managing his at-bats and then have the power come along with it. And I think we've started to see that here over the last few weeks, and it's awesome and exciting to see.
What have you thought of the way the rotations kind of responded to the injuries of Savali and Police?
Yeah, we've had, again, another place where we've had some adversity, but guys have stepped in. Both, I wouldn't want to limit it just to the rotation. I think it's been the pitching staff as a whole that's kind of stepped in to absorb some of those innings and done a really good job of keeping us in games and giving us a chance to win.
What are the biggest challenges you see with the roster right now as you try to juggle pieces and figure out long-term versus short-term what makes sense here?
Yeah, right now, I think we're all focused on how do we win tonight's game, how do we win as many games as possible before the end of the season. I think less focused on some of those long-term considerations. There will be a time when we can reflect back and think about what happened during the course of the season and how does that affect planning moving forward. But right now, all of our focus is on winning tonight's game.
So given how well things have gone here, especially this last week, and where you guys are in the grand scheme of a postseason chase, how rewarding has it been for you to look at this roster and to see that not only are things playing out well, but about being right in the thick of it this time of year?
Again, I think it's probably one of those where we'll reflect back at the end of the year and kind of think about what we learned this season and what the experiences are. But right now, our focus is how do we focus on today and winning today. And in order to do that, we need to make sure guys are prepared and have the right mindset to go out there and do that. And as Tito says, if we do that consistently enough, we can look up at the end of the year and hopefully it's good enough to get us into the postseason and take it from there.
If you knew now what you knew at the trade deadline, that you guys have like a 4-game lead in the division, would you have made a move, or would you have done anything different at the trade deadline to try and help the ball club? I mean, try to enforce or improve the ball club in one area or another?
I think there's a lot to that, Paul. I think at the trade deadline, we were continuing to expect we would be a competitive and contending team in the second half. the trade-off that we had to continue to weigh was very similar to the trade-off that we had to weigh at the beginning of the season, which was not just which players could be coming in, but who could they displace and whose opportunities would they remove. And I think if you look at our roster, we've gotten a lot of contributions from young guys that if we brought some players in at the deadline, they may have been displaced. And some of those players that come in may not have performed even at the level of some of the guys that have been here, the level at which the guys that have been here have produced.
You guys knew Oscar Gonzalez would do what he's done, right?
Yep, we had that nailed. Yep. So there was a question earlier about his power production, but I think the one thing we did expect with Oscar is that he has always impacted the ball. I think the consistency in which he's done that and the way he's managed his at bats, especially over the last handful of weeks, has been really encouraging.
Chris, when you look at some of the young guys in the bullpen, just the growth of the bullpen, like Sam, and kind of go off what Hoynes's asking or what everybody's asking, how do you have the patience to work through a season to see them kind of become what they become?
Yeah, again, I give those individuals, Sam, in particular, credit along with Carl and our coaching staff. I mean, Andre, you get a chance to see it every day, the relentless work that happens behind the scenes that then translates to that success on the field. And all of those guys, it's one of the consistent elements of our, not just our pitching staff, but our team, is that willingness to put in the hard work to prepare to succeed and build on that each day, so then you can have stretches like Sam has had. And the continued development of guys up and down the roster, guys in the bullpen, position players, some of the starting pitchers, continues to be a highlight from the year. And it's a credit to the work that those players have put in alongside with our coaches and staff.
Do you guys feel like you have a legitimate chance to get Plesac back? I know he's got, he said he just told me he's throwing all those pitches he thinks today.
Yeah, I think on Saturday he's actually going to throw an all-pitch bullpen. He threw 25 pitches the last time, so on Saturday it'll be a big step because at that point he should be throwing all of his pitches, and we'll have more information at that point. Hopefully, Zach can come back and be an option for us.
How much does it help that you still got minor league baseball going when you deal with Savali and
It helps in a lot of ways that there's AAA baseball especially happening right now, both in terms of, if we have needs that arise up here, we have guys that are still active, still playing, still competing. And then in situations like, today with Aaron, we have a place for him to go and rehab and, get a rehab start in, which in prior years we didn't have that available to us. So we had to try to create that somewhere.
So do you prefer smaller roster here, having minor league baseball, or you know what I mean? Because it seems like that was...
Yeah, so generally I'm a fan of, September looking a lot more like the prior 5 months of the regular season than maybe what we had seen in years past. So I think the rules were certainly a step forward in the right direction, and I kind of like the way where it is right now, especially with having the AAA season continue to go.
Chris, I know you've talked about it a couple times already this year, but what makes Tito so good for any type of roster makeup, whether there's a bunch of veterans in the room or a clubhouse like this where maybe he hasn't had it as frequently, where it seems like it's all rookies? What about him is so good for no matter what he's managing?
Well, he has a vast set of experience to draw from. I think he's now led and managed all types of different teams. But beyond that, I think one of the things that makes Tito so incredible at what he does is he understands each individual and what that individual needs to succeed and compete or develop. And he's so attentive to that and thoughtful in helping support each player to be the best versions of themselves, that when you do that around a team and do that consistently enough, you've got a lot of good things happening. And whether that's a guy that's been in the league for a long time like Brian Shaw, or a guy that's just experiencing things for the first time in some of our young players, Tito has that ability to connect with them in a way and give them just what they need.
What'd you think of his actions Monday night around home plate?
He was able to express what a lot of us were feeling, and he probably did in a way that, you've been around Tito. You know how competitive he is, and in that moment, that could have been a big play of the game, and for him not to have to do everything he was supposed to do to get the attention of the umpires, and then for them not to give that attention to him, understandably, that upset him. And thankfully, we ended up winning the game, but that could have been a big turning point in that game, and things could have gone a different way for us.
I told him he hit for the cycle and F-bombs there in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's about as animated as I've seen him. So, and again, I think in this case, for good reason, there was, I know umpires said they have a really difficult job, but this was just one case where they missed it. And
I know you guys would undersell your players in their there's so many variables that go into a season and how things develop and how players come on and what have you. How surprised are you, though, that you guys are sitting here 4 games up with 2.5 weeks to go? Or are you not?
Yeah, I guess we didn't know quite what to expect during the season, but I think that mindset of trying to take each day and winning that day and preparing to succeed and then go out and compete, that mindset's been there from spring training. And Tito does such a great job of setting that tone early on that, guys show up each day looking to win. And like he says, we'll look up at the end of the year and see whether or not that's good enough. And I think where we are right now, we have an opportunity in front of us, and it's exciting to be playing meaningful games at this time of year.
Saw guys like Tristan and Richie having the Roberto Clemente jerseys in the clubhouse. How cool is it to be able to have days like this and be able to honor players who've meant so much to the history of this game?
Yeah, I think that's one of the great parts of our game is the opportunity to celebrate some of the history of some of those individuals who have made such great contributions, not only on the field, but to the community and to the world at large. And today to be able to celebrate Roberto Clemente, who did so much, was an extraordinary player, but arguably a better person. I think it's one of the highlights of the baseball season.
Outside of Roberto Clemente, this team and Megan have done a great job this year doing things in the community. I mean, even Tristan said to me, it's like, I'm the candidate for Roberto Clemente because a lot of our guys are doing stuff in the community.
Sorry.
I know your job is to get wins and losses, but what does it mean that so many of these guys are doing things in the community?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, we actually had an event this morning with Cal and Easton Quantrill where they have a program, Letters with Love, which is designed to support foster children, where individuals write letters to children in foster care. And so we were up with our front office and everyone was pitching in. But we have so many players on our team that are thinking about the responsibility and opportunity they have, not just to be great athletes and performers on the field, but use that platform to make an impact in the communities in which we all live. And we have a really good group of guys that are thinking beyond themselves, and that's not always the case, especially with guys that are so young in their careers and so early in their life.
With the Karinchak, the situation in Minnesota, were you satisfied in your conversations with the league about how it happened, how it came to be, and was anything resolved?
What situation with Karinchak? Did something happen in Minnesota with him? We were in touch with the league. Again, each team has the opportunity and the right to ask the umpires to check pitchers. I think our issue was not the fact that they made the decision to check James or any other pitcher. It was the timing with which that happened, and that's something that Tito certainly flagged, and we both had follow-up conversations with Major League Baseball on. So I think if they have those opportunities in the future, they'll be a little bit more diligent in following on that protocol to make sure it doesn't happen within an at-bat, but between at-bats.
Are they telling the umpires that?
That's my understanding. They've communicated that to the umpires. That's how the procedures are in place. That's what's written down. And this was just a case where, for whatever reason, that didn't happen.
There's a tweet from Elvis Andrus. I was wondering if you saw that. He said,
I don't have any social media. So if it's on social media, it's not, I didn't get it. But I'm aware that he may have said something. So
he said, the Guardians have been perfect right now. All we have to do is keep winning series and they'll crumble.
Okay.
Anyway.
I think from the beginning of the season, we've tried to continue to tune out what any of the outside dialogue has been about our team and just focus on the things that we can control. And it sounds redundant at this point, but that's preparing to win tonight's game. And that's, I think, what I'm focused on. I know that's what Tito's focused on and our players are focused on. The rest of it's just outside noise.
You sure you're not on social media?
I'm quite confident I'm not on social media. So you did? Okay. Then it's someone else tweeting on my behalf or whatever, or snapping or some of those other things. Behalf, I don't know. All right. Anything else?
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks for